Awesome. We got Ed Krystosik over here. So Ed, you help businesses leverage AI to increase revenue. You've also written a book, Empathy in the Age of AI, and you're just like a man of like many traits. I've read your profile. You've been to 10 different countries, 27 years of experience. Where do we begin? What do you want to talk about?
Oh gosh, I would say that I'm perpetually curious. And so if something strikes me as interesting, I can't not go all the way towards its inevitable end. So that's why there's so many varied interests that I have. I've been in banking, I've had IoT startups, and currently I have an AI agency that I co-founded with my brother. And we just launched our first SaaS product, which is an end-to-end AI transformation audit platform that AI agencies and AI consultants can use to effectively run AI transformation audits. And
Whoa.
one of the things you may have seen the MIT study that showed that 90 to 95% of AI projects fail, and that's a problem we're trying to address.
Yes. Okay, that just struck a
Let's
chord
start there.
with me. Because yes, I got excited when you said that because I have a couple of AI projects, okay? And I use AI regularly, like day in and day out, like whether it be, shopping, whether it be looking something else up. And then what I do is I build videos on like CRM, website development, AI implementation, workflows, automations, end-to-end, that kind of stuff. And so I'm heavily leveraged on AI, the various LLMs that are out there, as well as, features, capabilities like AI voice agent, for example. And so recently what I did was I built this platform where people can build their own agents. And I'd love to show it to you and get your honest feedback live right here.
Oh, let's do it. I love that.
Here we go.
Never do a live demo.
What could go wrong?
This will work fine. I know it will.
Okay. And you can roast me live on my own channel. Here we go.
No, I'm a fellow builder. It's fascinating. And we always think our product is terrible and should be thrown immediately away. But then the users in the community are like, oh, that's awesome. Can you do this feature? And so
I'm sure that's exactly how it goes. We think our product sucks and then the users love it. And then we make $1 million.
That's right.
Okay, so first I was using N8N. A lot of people are familiar with that, but for those that are not, there are nodes basically that you can put into a workflow. You connect to nodes, and then like node 1 will say, go scrape the internet. Node 2 will say, go send an email. And then you have to figure out how they're all communicating through APIs to like different software, online platforms, and so on. The learning curve can be a little bit high on N8N, okay?
Yep.
And then the complete opposite of N8N would be like going to ChatGPT and then typing in a prompt saying, hey, what's the weather like in Chicago, or whatever the case is. So super simple. So what I hoped for was something in the middle, basically, for folks that understand the concepts of AI and what they want it to do, but then not as simple as LLMs where they just kind of push things out. Maybe some of them give you some files and outputs now, but this was a few months ago when that wasn't the case. So I'll give you just the studio part. This is a pretty large website, but if you go into the studio, this is how you can build an agent. Give you a little tutorial, you can go through that. But then you have name, description, very straightforward. And then the key of it, of course, is the prompt, as we all know. So you can put the prompt over here, fill it all out. You got variables in here, and then you can do examples if you're not so creative. Basically just copy that in or say use this, and then it'll pull in the variable, and then that can be your prompt for this agent. Now, what made it even better was I could attach tools to that prompt. So now if you tell the agent like, hey, you're responsible for, going to Google AI platform and figuring this stuff out. But then what else can you do? In categories, maybe you can send emails. So you might want like a send grid, for example, or you want to send text messages as well. And then you can have all sorts of things like creative. Maybe you're building pictures and you want a DALL-E, or you want to build a voice agent. So you have 11 labs integrated as well. Informational, you want to scrape the internet for leads. A lot of agencies want to put together like this comprehensive list. Well, you can have all these agents just do it for you. And then you just hit publish, and then it posts up here in the Explorer. And all of these agents are free to use right now. And I had this model in place where anybody off the internet can jump here, build an agent for themselves. And then if they get to 1,000 uses, like people use it 1,000 times, some of these are like, 16, 3. I'm pretty much the only, it's like a self-licking ice cream cone. Like I build it and then I come here and I use it. But I also have a community for high level, like CRMs, that leverage this a lot. So if you want A2P registration helpers, got an agent that can do that for you. right? But when we get to 1,000 runs of this AI agent by 100 different people, you can then monetize these agents, and you'll get a 90% commission payout on every time somebody uses these. So somebody comes over here, buys credits, and then they run them, and then it charges them a couple of tokens or whatever the case is. And then you would be able to monetize off of this if your agents were sort of like the best agents on this platform.
That's an awesome idea.
What do you think?
I love that community aspect and that marketplace aspect. I mean, that allows people who may not want to take that full step to build their own platform out, but yet they really want to, contribute to the community, have a side hustle or a business to build these agents. That's awesome.
So are those projects that you run into, and then you can, kind of do an audit against it and see, well, what are you lacking? You haven't thought of this, or have you tried implementing X, Y, and Z, and then provide some kind of feedback to them? Yeah,
that's exactly what we do. What we even go like sort of one step back in the value chain, where we say, okay, going back to that stat from earlier, that 95% of AI implementation projects failed to return an ROI. Now, I tend to think that that's kind of an unfair way of saying that this early on, right? How long have they had to test it? 30 days, 60 days? They're still tweaking it. They've got to find its niche, right? To really go one step back into the AI transformation audit, and that allows us to identify, okay, the client may come to us and say, I want an agent for X. And we say, and early on, we would say, great, we'll build you agent X for Y dollars. And then we would just hand it off, and it would inevitably fail, right? Because they didn't quite understand what they were trying to accomplish. Maybe their own internal manual process was broken. And so they're like, well, if I throw AI at it, then it'll unbreak, which is magically not the case, right?
Yeah.
And then it allows us to go back and say, okay, well, you say you have this problem. I'll tell you an example. We work with a law firm, and they came to us and said, we have this problem where we get these calls and they don't get logged, and then they're manually transferred to a different system, and we don't know what to do with them. Can you build an AI agent that scrapes the call logs and then cross matches it with blah, blah, blah? And I said, sure, we can, but you don't have a technical problem. You have a cultural problem. There's something in your system of transferring leads from coming in to converting. That system is broken, and all the AI in the world is just going to make it faster broken.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be faster broken. I love that terminology. And you hit it right on the nail, where it's the problem is not going to be solved by a tool that you just saw online, or you saw some kid, wielding it around. You don't walk into Home Depot and say like, I need a hammer. Why? Well, I'm building a house. Well, that's the wrong tool for it, right? Same thing. It's like, you don't need this AI. Let's figure out what the problem is. And if you keep asking them why, like a kid, you usually get to the root cause. And ultimately, It's like, because these two things aren't working together, so we don't have increased revenue. Well, that's like 3 steps removed from not tracking your calls properly, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. That's exactly what.
Yeah. And then there's also an aspect of that, of the technical detail required to get the data that you're looking for, right? So another attorney, we work with a lot of attorneys, we're building out a platform, but part of the project would have to require integration into third-party CRMs to be able to send data back and forth. And I'm like, do you understand how hard it is to integrate a single API point? Now you're trying to go to people you don't work with, who have different security concerns, who have different tech stacks, and you're trying to then connect their data to yours. You got to take a step back and figure out if there's some other way to go about this, but it is too big of a project for you to bite off. And unfortunately, they went with a different provider who probably told them that, yeah, we can absolutely do that, no problem.
Sure.
And I've been in contact with them, and I'm like, hey, I wish you the best of luck. But
I know it becomes a headache, because yes, it might sound cool because it's a novel problem to solve, or maybe the pay is really good, or you have a good relationship with this person, you just don't want to say no, right? Because you worked with them before. But then when you get into that, and especially if it's like an hourly type arrangement where it's like, okay, we'll do 40 hours at a time, we'll take it a week long at a time, and then the weeks start adding up, and then you're not delivering, and they're unsatisfied, and there's no product to actually speak of.
You get frustrated,
and then it blows up. It hurts your reputation, it impacts their revenue. It's a bad situation. So I like your model where it's like, hold your horses, let's get back a little bit, let's do a deep dive analysis of your entire process, And what are
Yeah.
your company goals? Are we actually achieving them? And then deep dive into where the root cause is. And then let's address those particular issues.
Yeah. And some positive that came out of that conversation where I said, you know what, we're declining to do this project because it's not the right thing to do. We could tell you and sure, close the deal, fine. But I was like, this is not the right thing. But during that call, we discovered another person in that department who had a different problem that was absolutely solvable with AI in a big way. And we ended up doing like a $35,000 project for that part of it, right?
Beautiful.
So they win, we won, everyone was happy. And that's what we want to get to is like, let's sit down and talk about this for a while.
What was the project?
It was a physician referral platform for managing referrals for attorneys in personal injury cases. And it was just very disorganized. They had all the data. It was all available. It just wasn't centralized. There needed some mapping APIs that were involved. And there were a lot of aspects of like, okay, we do this manually, these 10 steps. And I'm like, well, 9 of them can be automated. And the 10th is someone approving the other 9 steps.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. And so it really came to be like, this is something that's valuable to you and something we're extremely confident and we can execute. And so, yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. Kudos to that business for identifying that, taking your feedback, and then realizing that there is a solution here, because they're probably well off. Now, you're talking about 9 steps. That could have been an entire team of people working different shifts all over the country. Maybe they're remote. And now the communication aspect is something you solved. All of the various documents are all over the place. You probably streamlined it to where it's more efficient now.
Their client satisfaction has gone up.
Yeah, satisfaction, thank you. And then that approval you're talking about, for those that are listening, it could be like an email that goes to the top head honcho, and then they just say yes. You know, that's like, they just have to move their thumb and hit yes. And then that's the approval that kicks off everything else. So long term, they've saved a lot of money and reduced headaches and, streamlined resources. That's really nice.
Yeah, it was a good project, and it builds trust, right? In that you're not out there just telling them yes to everything. And I see that a lot, unfortunately, on LinkedIn. In a lot of sales pitches I hear is like the answer is always yes. And I've learned through, I was in private banking for JP Morgan, right? And I learned very quickly that you have to be careful with what you say yes to, because they will hold you to that. And so through that experience in my life, I maybe have turned down projects and deals that perhaps could have enriched me, but I wouldn't have had the same quality of life and that ability to be like, go to sleep at night because I'm not worried about it, because I know it can be done.
And it's totally fair that sometimes you do have to say no. My mentality is typically following the Parkinson's law, which I recently learned, is you say yes to everything. And so regardless of whatever the issue is or the cause or the request, you say yes, but then once it's on your plate, you prioritize accordingly.
Yeah.
And then only the important things sort of like funnel up to the top, because that's the one that's eating your lunch because it's a problem, or that's the one that's going to bring you the most revenue, or it could just be the most satisfaction, right? Family is going to be top priority, for example. And so you're going to always say yes to family, they get on your plate, and then their top priority, they're always getting addressed. But I completely understand from a business standpoint, you don't want to walk into a bad situation saying yes and then realize that, oh, now it's a legal battle.
Right. Now no one's happy, least of all the client, and then least of all you. And yeah, it's just, and I think that's a lot of when you have a nascent industry like AI, right? Think back to blockchain, think back to .com, think back to, I don't know, when they first invented the buggy to put on a horse. I don't know. There's always going to be that rush in, right? I saw a comment today on LinkedIn referring to, the hype, the bubble of AI. And my comment back was, yeah, it's absolutely a bubble, but everyone knows it is. And if everyone is in on it, they understand that the fastest way to leadership in an industry or a new area of a concern is likely money, right? So you throw money at it and you hope that you end up on top when things settle out, right? And if we all accept that, now we could get into the question of data centers and electricity and water. That's a whole other resource bubble question. I'm not talking about that. But simply the investment in the tools, we're going to have a lot of learning. And the people who learn quickly, fail fast, and iterate, they're going to be the ones in 6 months or a year that look like they've got the AI figured out. Well, they just failed faster than everybody else.
Exactly.
And that sometimes
that's the key. Fail faster. Start moving. A lot of people will just sit there and plan and contemplate and analyze and refine. And then it's like, okay, well, did you make any sales? Are you
Yeah.
generating revenue? Like,
Yeah.
no, we're one of the 95% that are going to fail, your
Yeah.
stat.
Do you know if
So-
anyone wants this? Find out.
Exactly.
Right?
So what are like some of your go-to AI agents or LLMs that you rely on to? For example, the $35,000 job that you did, what did you rely on to solve that problem?
Yeah, so I have pretty much every subscription you can imagine when it comes to LLMs, and I like to test them because I am asked a lot of questions, in my consulting work and on podcasts, different things. So my primaries are Claude for content writing, posts, LinkedIn, blog posts, things like that, and things that have to do with language processing. If I'm looking for more technical instruction, I usually go to ChatGPT, and there's been some issues with ChatGPT 5 versus 4. I'm a 4 guy, a 4.0 guy that wants it back. Not for the emotional side of it, just I liked it better. Maybe it is emotional, we'll see. I do a lot of vibe coding. I'm very, very heavily into vibe coding in the last few months. It's really spoken to me as a way of very quickly iterating, failing, trying again.
Oh, yes. Sorry to interrupt, but the Agent Rage that I just showed on Base 44 vibe coding.
Oh yeah, Base 44, yeah. That was an amazing story, how he sold his company to Wix or one of the big...
oh, that's right. Wix.
Yeah, for like 44...
I think you're right.
$44 million or $1 billion. It was a wild story. And again, it's one of those stories where if you read the top headline, you're like, oh, just 6 months, he built something, he sold it, and now he's rich. Well, no, that's like his third company. And he's probably failed 200 times prior that
100%.
you don't see on the headline of Bloomberg. And that's what we miss a lot of times.
Yeah. Because that
And it
doesn't
discourages people. It discouraged me very, early on. I was like, how am I the only one who's not like wildly rich from AI yet? I'm like, well, it's been a few months. So no. And two, the people who have figured out a system and repurposed it to AI are probably the ones who failed before, and now they're being very successful very early.
Yeah, what I'm finding is, developing products and capabilities is a lot easier, right? The barrier for entry is much lower. Before, you had to be a high-level programmer, you had to have people, you had to know how do you actually go through like Kanban style, or have basically sprints and all that kind of stuff under your belt. Now it's like one person, one night can just vibe code, and maybe you watch a couple of YouTube videos, but really it's just understanding what your end vision is. And then just like a visionary, like a CEO, kind of explain in good communication, and then the AI agent will just build it for you towards the end. But now that's where the challenge begins, right? And I think that leads into the 95% of people that fail, because now you have a product. And then you don't know what to do. If you haven't run a business before, you haven't done distribution, e-commerce, like you haven't done sales and customer success, then you sort of like are holding this really nice shiny object, but you're like, what do I do with it? Like, how do people actually pay me for this? And it's that last distribution, the last mile, that is quite challenging that people find.
Yeah. An example of that sort of vibe code quickly, put a product idea out and see what happens in the market. The base of Audit, which is our SaaS for the AI transformation platform, it was a vibe coded lead magnet probably 3.5, 4 months ago. And I built it in like an evening, created a little marketing around it, put it out on LinkedIn, and it got, 40 or 45 comments, which I had never gotten that many before, people wanting it. And so, let them in, they played with it, they're enjoying it. And then it hit me, I was like, I live near Tahoe, and so I live on the Sierra Nevadas, and I was on my balcony just thinking like, what am I going to do with this? And I looked to the right, up into the mountains, and I was like, there's gold up there. I know there is. Yeah. And then I looked down to the left into the city of Reno, which is down below, and I was like, every day there's a new group of people who don't have that experience, who don't have consulting background, who don't have building background, but they want to be involved in this space. And I said, rather than try to chase the gold, let's sell shovels, right? Which is the gold rush metaphor. And I'm right in that space where the gold rush started. Exactly. And that's kind of where the Audit platform came from, is like, we have this experience and we can help the next generation come up through and actually deliver that value, regardless of if they have the lived life experience.
Wow, that's really cool.
There's a true story about looking up to the right, looking down to the left, and being like, I get it, I understand now. And then we built
That was your aha moment, your epiphany, right? The moment you kind of connected all the dots. And so how did you get past that difficult hurdle? Like, how are you not one of the 95% that fail? Because you're a product of your own, stack here, but you're the 5%. So how did you bridge that gap? How did you get your first customer?
So I think the biggest part of it was just simply not being afraid to go out of the comfort zone. right? It's very comfortable to sit in front of N8N or Make or any of these tools and build something cool and then want to show people and really have nowhere to go with it. You've got to have conversations, right? If you build it and no one wants it, you might as well have not built it. Yeah. So for me, it was simply sending emails, DMs. It's not sexy. It's not what everyone wants to hear, but it's literally just massive, unbridled action.
Yeah, outreach.
It just is down to just do more than you think you need to do. And I can promise everyone that overnight success is like 1 in 100. And I like to say overnight success takes a really long time.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite statement, overnight success takes a really long time, right? Because you were 95, because of that whole 100%, 95% failure. Yeah, just because I've failed 95 times, exactly. And statistically, I'll end up in the 5th percentile or the last 5%.
Gotcha. So when you were outreaching, did you do any kind of like paid marketing? Were you on YouTube making videos for this kind of stuff?
A little bit of YouTube. I really would like to do more. Becoming a guest on podcasts is helping me get over my fear of being on camera. No paid marketing. I had a newsletter. I was early to the newsletter space. So I've been running my own newsletter for a number of years now, which is at the CAIO newsletter.com. And everyone is interested could sign up there. And that's just sort of my weekly newsletter. It's on strategy, on sort of a lot of the concepts we're talking about here. It's not, hey, here's some AI news or here's a prompt. It's like, let's talk about this. That's what I'm interested in, right?
What is CAIO?
CAIO, Chief AI Officer.
Chief AI Officer. Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Which is something I recommend to pretty much every client we work with it may not be a formal position. It could just be someone who's curious about AI or really likes to go down rabbit holes or really wants to know more. And I'm like, appoint that person just to be the one who maybe we interface with. Perhaps is researching, learning, playing around with tools, and that'll be a valuable resource internally.
That's a really good point because, back in the day, you just had a CTO, a technical officer.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, we have these computers, and IBM was making these giant supercomputers and like, okay, we need somebody to maintain our database, right?
Yeah.
Every time a literal butterfly flies in there, that's a bug. And then the CTO would go in there with a fly swatter and take the bug out, right? Essentially, that was their job. And so now it started getting bigger and bigger where it's like, now you need a chief information security officer. And it's like cyber attacks and how we're going to defend against that. And it's like, well, let's put it into the CTO bucket. And you just kind of work for the CTO typically. And so now it's like AI can do just about anything in the company. You can't just like put that under the CTO and assume they're just going to handle it. Like this is bigger than a CTO position. And I think you're
right. And it's not purely technical, right? It's about understanding process. It's about understanding workflows. It's about understanding the political and psychological makeup of your organization, right? Are you a super tech forward startup and you're like, yeah, AI, go throw it in, let's try it? Or are you more of a old guard manufacturing where, you're concerned that the security system has too much technology because it might let in the hackers? Yeah. And I've dealt with both of those sides of the fence, right? And you're going to have a different conversation with both of them. And so finding someone internally who has trust, who can go, as Reagan said, trust but verify what I'm saying. And that I find that to be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's good. The other challenge is the customers themselves. Right? Because it's not just a business owner that you have to convince to use AI. Now it's like that service-based business, and has that customer who calls maybe like once every 6 months. And it's like, hey, I always speak to Bobby. Like, where's Bobby? And like, now I have this person call. No, I need a human. No, get me your boss, right? And then they get frustrated and maybe they leave. And then you ultimately churn on that customer, which would be terrible. So there's also like this learning curve where it's like, okay, well, Bobby's not here. Can we take a message? No, I want to talk to Bobby. Okay, wait, please, let me transfer you, right? So you don't lose that business. It goes over, transfers to them, and then they continue. But it's also like breaking the habit of customers, especially the ones that are not so familiar with technology to begin with. Now it's just like exponentially more complicated.
Yeah. So an example of that is there's a fairly mid-sized like flooring and decor company in Ohio that we work with. And they are entire ethos is one of the owners or the owner's family is going to pick up that phone if you call. And that's why they've been so successful, right? And so when we looked at their political dynamics, we looked at what makes them, right? it was like, okay, we don't install a customer-facing AI voice agent, right? But everything underneath the surface, think of the duck with flittering the feet, right? We've implemented systems, whether it be automation, pure automation, or AI, or some other aspects, some apps we've built for them, for their service team. But we worked with them and understood, like, you cannot put an AI agent in front of your customers because they expect, the reason they pay a premium to work with this company is that family personal touch.
I see. That's
right. And
cool.
if we came in like guns blazing, like, we're going to automate your front end, we're going to, it would have been like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, certainly you need to be sensitive when you're approaching their ethos like that, right? And they've been doing it for lots of years.
75 years.
Family. And then on one hand, it's like, they must have a really large family because that's just growing exponentially. Or you could define a little bit like, hey, this person's been here 20 years. They're like family. So we're just going to put that on.
Yes, that is a good, now I'm thinking about it, it's a better way to put it. It's like, the youngest tenured employee has been there like 5 years. It's like, they are a family, right? And they do, it's not just talking about it, they do. But one thing that, going back to your statement about it's not just the owner or not just the CTO or the decision maker, right? You've got, if you look back to like project management, which is something that I did previously in the engineering space, was you've got your different stakeholders, right? And some are decision makers, some are champions, some are informed, some are consultative, right? And you have to understand that dynamic going into a project. Because if you don't, and you step on the wrong toes, or you don't inform the right people, they can, with simply their facial expression on decision day, torpedo the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? So slowing down a little bit and understanding that AI is the technology, the human interaction is the sale, right? And you can't just AIify everything. Like I manage my DMs on LinkedIn personally. I don't have any automations. I just manage them because I like that and I want to be able to talk to customers.
Tell me a little bit about the process itself. So let's say a company's out there, they've finally succumbed to your hundreds of DMs, right? Like, hey, you want to talk to me, I promise. So they finally set up a call, a consultation. Can you walk me through that process? What does it entail?
Yeah, so it always for us starts with a discovery call, right? So that's kind of where we kick it all off. Let's get on a call. Let's talk through your current business process, what your goals are, what your challenges are, and really try to understand the core of like what you're trying to accomplish. And you may not know exactly what you want to do. You may not know exactly how it fits, but you have an idea of like, if you are asking for some AI, you probably know like, these are the 3 or 4 things that just really irk me every week. And I wish we didn't have to do them or a way to automate it. Then once that's done, we do some analysis. We have some different prompts. We now use our own platform, Audit, and then we'll go back to the client and say, okay, could we have these set of documents, right? You talked about your client onboarding. Do you have an SOP? And a lot of times we'll find they don't.
Yeah.
Okay, great opportunity. Let's put the brakes on. You need to get together with who does that and say, okay, can you connect me with the person who onboards all the new clients? Have a discovery call with them, right? Once you've gathered all those documents that you need, run those again through another series of prompts, and that comes up with follow-up questions, right? You're going to have like, okay, well, you said on the call that you do it this way, but your SOP says you do it this way. Which one is it?
Yeah.
And then we can nail down. They say, oh, I didn't know we did it that way. Okay, well, now we're discovering internal processes that are maybe even more broken than they thought, right? And one person just fixes it in the process because it's broken. Once that process happens, we'll then run a comprehensive audit and any kind of other documents we might need or other discussions with other stakeholders. We'll run the comprehensive audit, and then that outputs a couple of things. One is pain points heat map. Another is going to be your opportunity matrix. So if you're familiar with a sort of an Eisenhower matrix, 2x2, where it's high priority, low effort, or high return, low effort, high effort, low return, and then you can kind of score the different opportunities on that, which is a huge tool for us. And we also have a roadmap, right? So we can say, you may have come to us with this idea wanting to execute. Well, we found that there are 2 or 3 interim steps that if we don't get those cleaned up or maybe automated or data pipeline or connect 2 APIs together, the third thing, which is what you asked us for, is going to fail. So the roadmap lays out a process by which everyone can agree, here's where we are, here are the steps, and here's where we're going.
Gotcha. So do you have like a model where you're sort of like a consultant firm where the first part, or let's say stage 1, phase 1, is let's do some internal auditing first.
Yeah.
And then we'll define what the problems are, like you mentioned, the heat map. And then we'll say, our cost to do this would be X, Y, and Z, or this many hours, and then you pick which one you want to go down, right? Kind of like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes.
Gotcha.
And that just comes from experience, right? Very early on, if a client came to us and said, "Hey, I want this," we said absolutely, and we did it.
Yeah.
And that caused, again, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of sleepless nights of how am I going to do that? Like, I said yes, and they sent the check. I don't know how. You can't do that.
Exactly.
But now I got to figure out how. I learned a lot, right? But now at the stage we are, we have found that it's better for everyone if we take the time and work. And if a client doesn't want to work with us in that way, that's fine. And maybe we're not the right shop for that.
Mhm.
But that's just the way we found to have the best clients and the best experience on both our side and theirs, right?
Is there a particular target size company that you're going after, like cost-wise?
Yeah, so it's less about the size, I would suppose, and more about the sort of the mindset of the ownership and leadership. But we typically would work with companies in the 10 employees to about 100, right?
Okay.
And you get beyond that, you start to get into, it's a bit beyond our scope, right? You start to have teams that you need to have of consultants, and we're a 2-person
Right.
shop. And all the automation and tools we have, yeah, but that's another set of specialized expertise required as you get to, now you've got a C-suite, and you've got to interact with that, and you've got different political dynamics between CTO and CEO and CMO and
Yeah.
different budget. It starts to get a little bit unwieldy, and so we've found that our sweet spot is that kind of mid-market of just growing out of SMB, where they've done a really good job of growing manually.
Yeah.
Because an SMB is defined, I think, by the census as 100 persons or less,
Okay.
right? And they're ready to kind of make that next leap into a sort of a mid-market company.
Gotcha. So you try to
Right.
stay.
And they're the
under
ones who
100
are most
employees.
get the most value, we've found, because there is enough people doing enough things that are wasteful and are repetitive that you can really start to see ROI.
And so once you implement the technology, let's say it's AI, like you mentioned, the voice calling and then organizing and then documents and all that sort of typical, what I would call AI solution,
Yeah.
then are you also providing like the management of that, as a recurring fee essentially?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 models, and it's for the client to decide which one they want. Or there's really, I guess, 3. So one is they have internal technical teams, a CTO or IT staff who are very comfortable with maintaining an implementation, and maybe they want a few hours of consultative time here and there, and then we'll just do that hourly, right? More likely, because the systems are complicated, and the reason they came to us is they do not have that on-staff expertise, and we'll do a retainer where we'll devote so many hours a month to either ongoing training, system maintenance, upgrading. For example, we had a very small automation for a very large client, and I got an email yesterday or day before, and they said, it's not working and we don't know why. It just doesn't seem to be doing anything. And I said, okay, let me check on it. And I was dreading it because I'm like, oh gosh, something is broken. It's going to be a whole mess. Well, I went in, it was the baseline of its make, which is just like N8N.
Yes.
And Claude had deprecated the model.
Wow. I wouldn't have
so-
guessed that.
Yeah, the model
Okay.
that was using was deprecated. I did a little bit of two seconds of research, saw the error. And so I literally had to go through and just click 10 different places to update from Claude 3.5 Sonnet, whatever the version was, to Claude 4.5 Haiku,
Man,
which I
that's
knew would
interesting.
accomplish the same thing because, again, I work with all these models.
Yeah.
Faster, less expensively for the client because they have their own API keys, and fixed. But you've got to do that work.
When you said that, because I run into something similar. It's like, it's working brilliantly. And then all of a sudden I get this alert. It's not working. No. So you go there thinking you're going to have to troubleshoot like this entire web of like a
Oh, yeah.
workflow. And then it was like the billing. Like we didn't have it on auto billing or something.
Yeah.
So once the credits ran out, it
Credit card
stopped.
expired, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were gonna say. That I was gonna say that's what I thought. Let's
Yeah.
So you say we a lot, which is great. That's
Mhm.
like the right language to use, obviously, even if you're a small team. But what does your team consist of with these kinds of businesses and customer support?
Yeah, so the core is myself and my brother. We founded this early 2023, RACAI, which is our development and agency shop.
Yeah.
And that's where we do all of our building out of and our consulting out of. And then we also have a developer out of California, and he's actually our brother-in-law. So
Hey.
it's a very family affair. We always talk about family, and that's very important to us. And so he takes on larger projects and also consults on some of the smaller projects where there's a database, API, infrastructure question, and that's where his role is. But we hire a lot of AI agents, right? So we find that, okay, if we do something X amount of times, like we see ourselves, 3 or 4 times a week, 5 times a week, 10 times a week, we stop and once a week we review and say, okay, what new agent do we have to hire this week?
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way
We
to
build
look at
out the MVP of it. We let it go and see what happens, but we don't build it to solve the problem. We discover the problem and then build it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right? And I think that's taking our own advice. And before we should automate that. Well, we don't know if we should automate that yet, or what we should even do with the automation until we've done it enough times to be annoyed by it.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we're a small shop, and that's why we are selective on clients. Is we can't just take on, the experience would be terrible if we took on 100 clients at a time, right? We just wouldn't have the manpower.
You got to grow slowly, right? You're not going to exponentially grow because you're just going to grow yourself into too many problems, and you can't handle that. It's like when you're a smaller company, like you mentioned, you know what your upper limits are. Like past 100 employees, past those $100 million companies, it's like, hang on. We can't get involved with all these politics, whether you have the experience or not. It's just quite challenging. It's time consuming, just creates a lot more headache. So, and that's exactly the kind of model that, I work with a group that we built a community on school of like these small businesses that are heavily invested into AI and leveraging digital marketing and, solutions, voice and chat bots and all sorts of things into helping small companies out there. So, I'd love to have you in that group as well.
I'd love to be a part of it. That's awesome. Yeah, please. I would love to be a part of that community.
Yeah,
I'm a member of many communities.
It's a free community. Anybody can join. And I think that's the way to do it is you have folks, like-minded individuals together, helping each other and growing together. Because, I put this long post in there the other day based on a recommendation from my friend Len, saying we're a community, right? And even though we are all with the same tools and the tricks of the trade, we can't be competing with each other. It doesn't help. But if we help each other, then it's like these joint venture opportunities just magically appear. And it's like, hey, we need 4 people to come support this large contract we got, and then it's like, great, now we're all helping. Whereas if somebody was competing before, you just have like all this bad taste and challenges. And so we're building something really, really nice.
That's awesome. There's many people that I've worked with and in the community, like I've ended up working with, that I met in communities or online or just at meetups, right? I love going to in-person meetups in the technology space. And if we find that there's something that we don't know how to do and we need a very, very specific technical expertise, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I need this very specific voice call center agent, and I'll reach out to somebody. Or if I need an AI video, there's a team out of New Zealand that we work with, just globally. So we have a core number of people in the agency, but our extendable staff is global.
That's
because of communities like yours.
Exactly. Because then when those challenging projects do show up, you have people, on the bench that you can call in any time. And everybody is well proficient or has some experience in certain nuanced things that may be that expert that can just give you that aha moment. You bring them in for a couple hours, couple days kind of a thing to get you over that hurdle, and then you're back in it and solving problems.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to get in the community. I'm really excited about that. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll invite you. Thank you. Yeah, I think we can end it here. This has been fantastic. Love the start that you guys have. Would love to get you back as well to kind of see like at a 6-month mark,
anytime,
how fast you're growing, how much more revenue, that kind of stuff. I think that's phenomenal. Any parting shots?
No, this is a great conversation. I think that, you hit on a lot of really good concepts around, just making sure you're doing the right thing with AI and not trying to just throw it at a problem, but really step back. And I think we agree on that, where you've got to understand the problem you're trying to solve. You can't just slap the letters AI on it and say it's fixed. So awesome. That's my biggest takeaway for anyone listening is audit your business. There are tools online. There are prompts you can use. Just talk to somebody, whatever it is, figure it out first.
Absolutely. Well said. Good advice. And we're going to share all of your contact information, your website, your book, all of your acronyms that you threw out. We'll kind of like decide and then put it all in the description as well, so folks can reach out. And then we'll see you in our community, please. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. I'll see you there.
I appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks, Sonic.
Have a great day.